Hello fellow creatives, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for stopping by. Here I make sewing tutorials, DIYs, natural hair content, and also bead making tutorials. So if you know that those areas are what you're interested in, please make sure you subscribe. I post videos every Wednesdays and Saturdays. So as you can see from the title of this video is a dress, a fringe dress, and I'm having my Valentine's Day series. So I'm making different dresses that you can wear on Valentine's Day. Different dresses that cater to different aesthetics and different vibes. And this is the Baddie vibe. Okay, this is a dress that I created for the Baddie vibe, and it's representing, okay, isn't it? I feel like it's representing. It's so cute, so nice, and so sexy, dare I say. Yeah, so that is it. If you want to know how I created this dress, then make sure you keep on watching. All right, so these are the materials that we're going to need. And we're going to need our fringe. Of course, we're going to need the fringe that we use for the dress, and 3 yards is enough for this. Then we're also going to need fabric. It could be any fabric of your choice, but I went with crepe fabric and I used 1.5 yards. Then we're also going to need pattern paper, and last but not least, you're going to need your invisible zipper. Then after that, you're just going to need your basic tools, which are your scissors, your chalk, your tape roll, your rulers, your marking pen, and last but not least, your measurements. So before we start drafting the pattern, these are the following measurements that you're going to need. And if you don't have these measurements, then I have a video on how to get all your measurements, and I'm going to link it up there. So if you want to check that out, you could go check that out. So the first thing that we want to do is that we want to identify our center front, and I'm showing you my center front. So after that, the next thing that we want to do is that we want to mark the zip allowance, okay, because we're going to be using the same pattern to draft both the back and the front panel. So we want to mark our zip allowance, and my zip allowance, I want it to be 1 inch. So my ruler already has a marked point for 1 inch, so I'm just using my ruler instead of getting my tape roll to do this. So after I do that, then I also want to create the top part of the pattern, because as you can see, I'm just using like an extra pattern, because I didn't want to, I want to maximize all the patterns that I have. And prior to this, I made a pattern that really took like a lot of patterns, so I'm just trying to make use of the scraps, which I suggest you do. Okay, you don't just throw all these patterns away. We can actually use them, we can actually recycle them. Yeah, so after that, I'm marking my neckline. So I wanted my neckline to be wide, so I just marked 4 inches, and then from that neck point I went ahead to mark 3 inches, which would make my shoulder point. So as you can see, from that 4 inches mark, I'm just marking 3 inches to make my shoulder point, and that is after that. You can see after that, the next thing that we want to do is that we want to mark out our vertical measurements. So what do I mean by our vertical measurements? I mean our shoulder to bust, bust to waist, waist to hip, and then hip to dress hem. So now I'm just marking my shoulder to bust, which is 10 inches. Then I'm going to mark my waist point, which is 16 inches from my shoulder and 6 inches from my bust line. So after I do that, then I'm going to go ahead to mark my hip measurements. But after I put it here, I realized that, wow, this pattern is not long enough to accommodate my the length of my dress. So I have to make an extension of the pattern paper. So I just got another scrap pattern paper, and I just taped it together. So yeah, so after that, the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to mark my horizontal measurements at the other side as well. So as you can see, I'm marking my 10 inches at the other side, so that I can draw a straight line like so. And then I'm going to measure my bust to my waist again, which is 6 inches, and then I'm going to draw the straight line. Then from my waist, I'm going to measure my hip measurements, which is 9 inches. So I'm going to mark it on the 2 sides, and then I'm going to draw a line again. So I'm marking it on 2 sides so that I get like a really straight line, instead of just using my eyeball. Just best to measure on both sides of the pattern paper. So after that is the next measurement, which is the dress hem. So as you can see, I'm marking from my hip to my dress hem, but if you want to mark from your shoulder to your dress hem, which means your full dress length, then but I mark from my hip to my dress hem, and I made that 10 inches. So after you've marked all your vertical measurements, the next step is to mark your neckline and draft your neckline. So this was where I had to make the decision of reducing the neckline, because I noticed that it may be a little bit too wide for me, because my bust is quite small, so it may be a little bit too wide. So I had to take half an inch away from the 4-point mark that I marked. And after that, I went below 3 inches. From the bust line, I went down 3 inches, and then I'm just going to connect that 3.5 mark with the neckline mark that I marked under my bust. So after that, the next thing that we want to do is that we want to mark our armhole divided by 2. So my armhole was 16 inches, so divided by 2, that made it 8 inches. So as you can see, I'm just marking it on both sides as well, so that I will be able to get, you know, so after I do that, the next thing for me to do is to label it. Then after I label it, then I'm just going to go ahead to, you know, mark all my horizontal measurements divided by 4. So for my armhole, I'm going to mark my bust measurements, so that is my bust measurement divided by 4. On my bust line, I'm going to mark my bust divided by 4. On my waistline, I'm going to mark my waistline divided by 4. On my hip, I'm going to mark my hip divided by 4. And then my dress hem line, I'm going to mark my dress hem divided by 4. So, you know, just divide all your horizontal measurements by 4, and then, you know, I'm just going ahead to connect all the dots together. Then the next thing that we want to do now is that we want to create the armhole. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is that we want to get the exact measurement of the armhole from the top line. We want to get it on the armhole lines, you know, so that we will be able to you know, have a straight line like I always do. So as you can see, that is the measurement. So I'm just marking 6 inches, which is the measurement of my armhole. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm just marking 6 inches on the armhole line, and then I'm just connecting it with the one at the top. So after that, the next thing that you want to do is that you want to get your armhole curve, or you could just, you know, use your hand for this. So since we're going to be using the same pattern for the back and the front panel, the armhole curve that we just drew now is for the back panel. So in order for us to, you know, get the front panel armhole curve, we have to, you know, first of all get the middle point of that line there. So my middle point was 4 inches. Then I just, you know, went outward 0.5 inches from that point, from the middle point that I got. And then after that, as you can see, I'm just going to join it on a straight line from the top of that line. Then I'm not going to use my armhole curve to, you know, just join that point, that outward point, with my armhole measurement, as you can see. So yeah, that is it. So the one that is outside, the one with the outward point, is the one for the front panel, and the one with the normal curve is the back panel. So now the next step we want to take is that we want to draft our neckline for the back panel. So as you can see, I'm just marking 1 inch at the side of the neckline, and also at the side of the center front. Yeah, so I'm just going to connect those lines, and then I'm just going to use my French curve to just draw a curve. But you could also use your hand for this. You could use freehand. Just make sure that, you know, it's in the form of like a curve. It's in the form of like, you know, a curve. Yeah. So here I'm just adding my dart. So in order for me to get, you know, where I'm going to place my dart, I'm going to get my nipple to nipple, which is also your bust point to your bust point, and my bust point to my bust point is 4 inches. So as you can see, I'm just going to mark that. Then after I mark that, I want my dart to be 1 inch wide. So I'm going to mark from that point. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on the left side and 1/2 inch on the other side. Then after I did that, I went ahead to, you know, add the 1 inch dart that I left at that side. I'm going to add it to my waist measurements, as you can see there, you know, just so that we balance it up, because, you know, once we want to sew this dart, you know, we're going to take in 1 inch, so we always want to, you know, make sure that, you know, we are putting that back there. So yeah, I'm just going to add, you know, that 1 inch to my waist measurements, and then I'm just going to connect it to my bust line and to my hip line. And then after I do that, the next thing is to, you know, connect my darts. So I'm going to, you know, measure my bust point to bust point, which is 8 divided by 2, which makes it 4. And then, you know, I'm going to mark it on my bust line as well, and then I'm also going to mark it on my waistline, you know, so that I'll be able to, you know, draw an accurate, you know, line, as I always do. Yeah, so after that, I'm just going to, you know, connect and go up 2 inches from my hip line, and then I'm going to go down, and then I'm going to connect the lines that I made, you know, the 1.5 inch lines that I made from my on my waist. And then I'm also going to, you know, go down 1 inch from my bust line, from that 4-point mark that I marked, and then, you know, I'm just going to connect it as well. So after that, the next thing for me to do, is just to add my seam allowance. So I'm making use of 1/2 inch seam allowance for everything. So yeah, as you can see, once I made the points, then I just connected all the lines together, and then we are done with our pattern, and it's time for us to cut it out. So as you can see, the first thing that we're going to cut out are the points for the back panel. After we cut out the points for the back panel, then we're going to cut it out on the fabric. So after we do that, then we're going to cut out the neckline for the front panel and the armhole for the front panel. So of course you want to make sure that you cut out the back panel before cutting this out, or you could just transfer this pattern like this on another pattern paper, but I just didn't want to do that because yeah, I just didn't want to waste the pattern paper. So yeah, so you could just do it like this, or you could do it or you could just transfer it on a back panel or on another pattern paper. It depends on you. So as you can see, I'm just cutting the neckline and the armhole for the front panel, and then because we're using the same pattern, and that we had to add the 1 inch allowance for the dart at that point. So yeah, we have to take it out now since this is going to be our front panel. But yeah, this is kind of confusing, and looking back at this tutorial, I just wish that I actually just transfer the back panel to the to another pattern paper, so that I have the back panel and then I have the front panel, so that all this confusion won't be taking place. But yeah, as you can see, all I'm just doing is that I'm just going to the original waistline, and then I'm just extending it by 1/2 inch, which is going to be my seam allowance, and then I'm just connecting it to the same line that I have there. And yeah, so that is that for the front panel, and let's just cut it out on our fabric. So as you can see, we have all our pattern pieces ready. We have our front panel, and we should have 2 layers of this, and then we should have 2 layers of our back panel as well. And so these are the facing that we're going to be using to sew the dress. So I have a tutorial, a full detailed tutorial on how to cut the facing for this particular pattern. So if you want to know how to do that, and if you want to turn this neckline with the facing, then I'll leave a link up there so you could go check that out. Also in that same tutorial, I showed you how to sew this invisible zipper. So if you want to know how to sew it with like detailed tutorials, like it's a really detailed tutorial. But the first thing that we want to do before we start sewing our zipper is to get our darts. So a simple hack for you to do is that you just want to place your pattern paper on your fabric, and then just pin it, just pin those points, just pin it inwards. And you want to make sure that the pin goes through your pattern and it also goes through your fabric, and then you want to do it on all the points. On that first point, the 2 points at that side, and then also the point that is above your hip, and then once you turn it over, voila, you have your dart point. And after sewing the darts, the next thing that I did was I pressed the seam so that it would be stick down and it would just have that neat look. And then after that, I went to sew the zipper. So I have a detailed tutorial on how to sew your zipper with the facing. It's a combined video with how to turn your neckline with facing, and also how to sew an invisible zipper with facing. So I really suggest that you watch that video. It's linked up there, and it's also linked in the description box. Then after that, the next thing that we want to do is that we want to sew of our dress. So as you can see, the first thing we want to do is that we want to add our facing to the left side and the right side. So as we all know, we just want to sew on the armhole line and the neckline. No need to join the shoulder because we're going to be joining that part with the back panel. So as you can see, I have sewn the facing with the front panel, and it's looking neat, it's looking nice. I went ahead to press it down, just to make it have that look finished look. So after that, we want to join the 2 back front panel pieces together. So we're just going to join them on a straight line there, and we're going to leave 1 inch seam allowance because that's what we left for the while drafting the pattern, and then just want to overlock it, just give it that clean look. Then the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to add our fringe. Finally, we're going to add the jazz, and we're going to jazz it up. So yeah, as you can see, all we just need to do is just sew the fringe at that line, at the line of the neckline, and that is it. And then want to sew for the left side and for the right side. Then after that is done, we're going to join the back panel and the front panel together. So we're going to join it at the shoulder side, as you can see there, and we're also going to shape the dress. We're going to join it at the bust, waist, hip, and dress hem. And after we join these two pieces together and shaped it to make sure that it is our perfect fit, then we're going to go on and hem the dress hem. Hem the dress hem. Yeah, so we're just going to close it up. So I didn't want to use my sewing machine to hem this bottom, because I wanted it to be seamless. So I just brought out my gum stay. So as you can see, I'm just going to fold the gum stay like so, and then I'm just going to bring my iron. So once I iron it like this, just leave it on and press my steam on it, and then once I just press it on, it just voila, can you see that like it just looks so neat. And yeah, that like this is just an alternative for you if you don't want to, like, can you see how neat it looks? Like it looks so nice. So yeah, this is just an alternative for you if you don't want to have that annoying like seam line at the bottom of your dress. Then I suggest that you try this. Then this is optional, but I just didn't want like the fringe to waste, so I just decided to put it on my hip. Actually, I'm going to be honest, this is actually like a different style. This wasn't the style that I went with, like this wasn't the style that I envisioned, but because the fringe wasn't long enough, so I just had to improvise and all of that. So I'm still going to do the style that I envisioned, but I'm going to have to get another fringe. So as you can see here, in order for me to get that this thing, what I'm doing is that I'm just going to open up the zip. After that, I'm going to put the fringe there, and then I'm just going to sew. So as I'm sewing, I want to make sure that I'm always checking under the this thing to make sure that I'm not sewing on anything that I'm not supposed to be sewing on. So as you can see, I'm just going to sew on the hip line like so. I'm just going to be sewing slowly, just so that I don't make any mistake. And then after that, we are done with the dress. So this is how it turned out. I really love it, and it just looks so nice. And yeah, it's giving the Baddie vibe, it's giving the Baddie aesthetic. And yeah, I'm just so pleased with how it turned out. Right, so that is it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was easy to follow. Please, if you have any questions about anything regarding this video, just leave them down below and I would reply to them. So yeah, thank you so much for watching my new video, and yeah, please make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Okay, make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you leave a comment down below if you like this dress and you're going to recreate it, and also make sure you share it to anyone you think might need it, or anyone you think would want to sew a dress like this. So yeah, and make sure you subscribe. Okay, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Okay, enjoy the fam so that we can make beautiful things together. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.